Talk about being a promoter of MMA events in New York.
Being a promoter in New York City, one thing that I realize is that if you want to have a good promotion company that's going to have credibility, it's the best thing to do. Being that in New York City, the issue of MMA is very sensitive due to the fact that actually MMA is still premature in New York City. You have to have a good sanction body that regulates actually all the requirements for fighters to fight at the shows, which is medical requirements, blood requirements, the history of fighters, their fight records, if these guys are actually prepared physically and mentally to fight, and the rules and regulation, which is the most important thing. You really can't have referees and referees or judges who just have a background in boxing, because refereeing MMA actually fight is a combination of striking, kicking, jiu-jitsu, learning the aspect of the ground, how the guys pass each other, how they score the point system, and MMA judging. So an organization that has good judges and good referees plays a big aspect to this. And I try to keep my promotion company with the good organizations as the WKA or the ISKA that has good recognition with MMA judging in the sport.
Now, your first few shows were sanctioned by the WKA, and you switched over to the ISKA. Why is that?
Well, just simply because the WKA, they have so many events on the calendar that sometimes it becomes a conflicting interest and conflict with having certain referees and judges. Other issues are, on the business aspect of it, but it could be possibly in the future that we might use the WK due to the fact that I'm on a joint venture with a big organization that's about to set off now, and they're trying to get MMA, amateur MMA, into the Olympics. So I want everything to be pretty much solid, concrete, and professional. And I might just turn back to the WKA just because of the recognition and popularity as a sanction body.
For practical reasons, or practically was the WK that much different than the ISK, or?
The issues that I'd rather not speak about, but they're great. They're great. They don't really lean out too much flexibility in certain things. Won't cover those issues, but they're great. They're great. I don't have complaints. It's just only my personal decision. Actually, as a promoter, promoters have the right to use who they please to, as long as they're happy with the services of the sanction body, which is important. Having good judges, good referees that know what they're doing is very important. Personality also, and business mentality for me plays a huge role. So that's really important.
Why did you want to use a sanctioning body? I mean, there are events out there that make up their own sanctioning body, and there are events out there that don't use anyone. Why did you go the route that you did?
Well, once again, credibility, them regulating and controlling the show, the refereeing, the judging for most of all the history. So if any of the fighters that actually compete at the show wants to get any kind of information, or other sanctioned bodies or other states of promotion want to know where these amateur fighters have fought before, they can find out in the WK's website, and eventually in our website. We'll be updating our website so we can have full background of all the shows that we have, all the winners, the losers, champions in the organization. But mostly, most fighters want to know that they at least fighting and they have record of their fights, and that is credibility to the fights, and people can know. That's the difference between the United States and Europe. Europe is so organized with MMA that it's incredible. All fighters use an ID card that actually is a scan bar to it, and when the fighters fight, all their records are kept on that scan bar. So no matter where they go or what fight promotion, they can actually scan those scan bars. And what happens is you can tell how many fights that fighter has had, lost, or he's been actually lost, been suspended because of injury. And actually fighters are not allowed to fight until suspension is over and the organization gives them back their ID cards, which allows them to go back to competition. Where in the United States, none of the sanctioned bodies actually has created none of this stuff yet. So we really behind.
Talk about how hard it is to be a manager of fighters in New York?
Well, it's not really hard. What really makes it hard is the fighters. It's not really hard in the sense that if you're willing to give a fighter an agreement between you, a manager and a fighter, and you're willing to commit yourself to that fighter, and he's willing to commit himself to you, and you say you're going to be able to get him 4 to 6 fights a year, realistically, the fighter wants to fight, and that's what he wants to do, and you providing him with these fights and records and promotion, exposing him out in the state of New York City, I don't think it's very hard. On the other hand, with the amount of fighters that are in New York with MMA, it could become a little difficult because there's only so many schools in New York that really know as premature that MMA is in New York that really have the fighters competing in these MMA shows. So in that sense, it might become a little difficult because everyone's trying to grab the only solely competitors in New York in MMA. So it might be difficult in that end, but as managing, it's not if you're keeping your word for these fighters and building their amateur records to a professional level.
Right now, pro MMA isn't legal in New York. You have your guys going, are you advising your guys to go out of state to turn pro, or you can want them to wait?
Well, right now what we do with our fighters is building the amateur record. We want these guys to at least have 6 fights a year. Eventually, after 12 to 18 fights, when every gentleman, every fight is different. In most fights, some fighters actually achieve certain things physically and technical-wise and knowledgeable-wise and technique faster than others. But if after 12 fights or 10 fights, a guy is really ready to turn pro, we could. Not in New York, of course, because pro MMA is not legal here, but I am involved with about at least 3 organizations to 4 outside New York where I can actually take my fighters out to Miami, to Chicago, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, even LA, where we can have, I'm actually involved with other promotions outside New York as a, in the pro field, that I can turn them pro there. So that's not going to be too difficult at all to do. There shouldn't be an issue with that.
Okay.